What is going on, everyone? Thank you guys for checking in. It's been a hot minute since we've been live. It's been a minute. Obviously, I'm on the road. I've been working a lot. It's been a little bit of a grind, but it's I'm glad to be back, everyone. I really am. I'm having a great time. You know, it's it's been a little bit difficult, being away from everyone, and it hasn't been the best time. But you know what? Overall, we're back. Appreciate everyone checking in. We're gonna go over some QB rankings. We're gonna do my prediction and everything like that. For those who don't know, I've been working my tail off, doing all that cool guy stuff. But overall, we're going into week 6 of the UFL season. It's been a pretty crazy time if you have or haven't been paying attention. We've seen some highs, we've seen some lows, we've seen this, we've seen that. It's overall just been an extremely, a lot of parity right now. We have some great stuff going on with the St. Louis Battlehawks and, San Antonio and, Birmingham continuing there. We've seen the disappointment. A lot of people thought Memphis Showboats would be the team to beat. And obviously, they're kind of meandering a little bit, but in the end, I'm excited to see what's going on. I mean, I want to talk about the AFL, but I'm not as versed in that as you would. I mean, I recommend everyone following Spring Football Zone. That guy has been doing a great job of kind of keeping everything together and pushing forward on that. And it's been really sad just to talk about that for a little bit. You have the AFL, the storied league that so many people in my generation have fallen in love with and have embraced, and really seen, you know growing up, and you see a storied franchise like the Philadelphia Stole and all the negatives that they have going on, for lack of a better term. And it's just been terrible, and it's been unfortunate, and it's been a process that has been completely mismanaged by Lee Hutton. And if you know or you don't know, I've been going to a lot of IFL games, and to see especially like the Vegas Nighthawks, especially up close in person, and see the progress and how great they've been. To see the AFL, like I've talked about, this storied franchise, how terrible they have been. It's been disappointing. And in the end, the suits, they're going to be fine, but it's the players that are the victims of that. And I just wanted to give those guys a quick shout out, essentially, and just be like, hey, this is what's going on, and if there's anything I can do, just help a player out, help a coach out, whatever. But with that being said, let's get into these quarterback rankings. A little bit more movement this week. You saw 11 different quarterbacks actually take a little bit of snaps this week. It starts off, disappointing season for a guy like Jordan Teamu, who's been, a part of these leagues. He just crossed over 1,000 yards rushing, 40 touchdowns in his career. And you see, obviously regression there. That has less to do with his skill set. You're seeing, Reed Sinnett get an opportunity, do pretty well, but just have a complete mismanagement of his team. The Houston Roughnecks just not really doing too hot. Troy Williams getting an opportunity, doing some good stuff, but also kind of, limited with the overall offensive line play. It's overall it's disappointing, obviously, but at the same time, it's football, and I know that's kind of a cop out. Quinn Dorman, still taking advantage of his opportunity with Chase Garber's down, and then Danny Etling. It's a lot of guys getting a lot of different snaps, man, and I'll read off some of these like top 10 statistics that you guys know I keep up with. But, we're also starting to see a little bit of shift. And I'll see if I can pull that up real quick. But you're starting to see a shift in like who these guys are, if that makes sense. It's who is becoming, for lack of a better term, the our best players and whatnot, and it's getting a little crazy in my opinion. Like to see the shift of like guys from the old UFL and the XFL 2020 and AAF. Like we're seeing a changing of the guard right now, and Channing Stribling's gone, and Taylor Russolino is gone, and with this new 24 class, AJ Lewis, a tight end, he's coming into the fold. So I don't want to bore people with that too much as more people kind of get into this. But to begin these quarterback rankings, I'm giving my honorable mention to DeAndre Francois. A little bit disappointed that he's even in the league, to be honest with you. Jalen McClendon was a guy that in a 16-team league, I really thought was going to take that next step. I really thought that he was going to be, able to build upon his success in 2023 and get the opportunity. But obviously, that's not happening. And Francois comes in, he goes 0 for 2, 0 yards, no rushing statistics. And with everything that happened with Francois, with the work we've seen in the spring league last year, it seems like he's taking an opportunity from someone. And while he was successful at Florida State for a little bit, I think they won the Orange Bowl when he was there. It to me it just kind of seems like that train's kind of moving a little bit, and I'm over it personally. But he gets our honorable mention, as you can see on the screen, coming in at number 10. I got Lindsey Scott Jr. He goes 1 for 1, -1 passing yards, 2 rushing attempts, 0 rushing yards, plus his sprinkled in there. Arlington's a play away, man. It's a real unfortunate thing. Like they are a play away, and that's football. Like them. I'm not going to sugarcoat it or anything. Like, oh, they deserve to be better or worse or whatever it is. But Arlington to me is just a team that maybe, I want to say like start building for the future and all that goofy stuff. But what does that actually mean in spring football, right? Like, does it mean like, start prepping for the next phase of a season that, I think everyone thinks that they're going to come back in 2024 or 2025, but like, there's so much change and goofiness and whatnot. Like, do we actually believe that they are going to come back in 2025? Like, we know what they're doing with the coaches and whatnot. Like, what's a guy like Scott's long-term play? I thought we'd see him more like the Eric King. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem he's getting that same, workload. Like King had 4 passing touchdowns. He had a bunch of, rushing attempts. It seems like they're just kind of afraid to let him go. You're 0-5 right now. So at this point, like what do you have to lose? I love Luis Perez. I think Luis Perez is doing a great job at quarterback. I know he's limited with his arm strength and everything like that, but at the same time, like this is a guy who's been such a focal point. But with the way your season's going now at this point, like might as well just let Scott kind of take more responsibility, let him kind of go out there, let him, do his, show his skill set, his athletic ability. I'd like to see a game where Scott has about 10 pass attempts. I think that would be the kind of the perfect like number for him. But in the end, it does seem that Arlington is pretty set in their ways, and we're not going to see a more explosive explosive output from Scott until they truly give up on the season. So that's my opinion on Scott. Really liked what he does when he's actually getting in the groove and whatnot. But I mean, it seems like the Luis Perez show right now. But we'll see what happens in the future. Overall, Arlington's got a lot of issues to figure out. Kind of just getting their ducks in a row. But this is a team that I've been really high up on, and it's unfortunate that they are 0-5. Moving up to number 9, I got Nolan Henderson. A little bit more of a expanded role this week due to the blowout. Houston has so many internal issues that it doesn't really matter who's at quarterback. Like if you read the film, like Reed Sinnett looks good. Like he's making the right reads. He's smart, one of the smartest quarterbacks in this league. I don't think enough people talk about that personally, but it's not clicking right now. I think they relied on Mark Thompson to be the savior, and it's unfortunately not happening. Um, they lose another receiver, or excuse me, tight end. So tight end and Woody Bremen. You got Brandon Bowman, who's going to be taking 100 more of the snaps at tight end. That's not really your elite like pass catcher. Um, so this is a guy that hopefully gets an opportunity, to be used in the RPO game. So that's way more athletic than people give him credit for. But at the same time, you really have to start kind of picking and choosing what's going on. Jared Guarantano, he's coming back. He's gonna be their QB2 now. So Henderson's not even active. You got to see what they think about that as far as what they're going to use. Sinet Guarantano to me looked very underwhelming, very unimpressive. I've heard rumors that there was a little bit of like turmoil in that locker room as far as between Sinet and CJ, but we'll see what happens. Nolan Henderson comes in that garbage time. He goes 3 for 4, 35 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick. Pick looked like on a little bit miscommunication. But in the end, I think Henderson comes back for year 2 and kind of keeps developing and whatnot. Maybe we see him become like a practice squad quarterback for an NFL team that really wants to focus on like developing the RPOs and whatnot for their scout team. This is a drop right here, man. Number 8, my quarterback is Jordan Ta'amu. Ta'amu goes 12 of 23, 101, 1 touchdown, 3 picks, 4 rushing attempts, 26 yards. This is a fixture in this league. Like I said, over 1,000 rushing yards, 40 career passing touchdowns, passing yards. He's coming up. He might hit 6,000 this week. He's pretty much number 1 or number 2 since 2001 on all these different passing statistics. You got a guy who right now he lost 3 offensive linemen to retirement. There are injuries all over the place. You get a guy like Kiki QT, you think is going to be the guy. He gets hurt. Kelvin Hart, or excuse me, TJ or Josh Hammond retires. You got Lucky Jackson, Chris Blair in the NFL. He's putting way too much on his shoulders, and something I don't think gets talked about enough is you're losing a guy like De'Aaron King. It took a lot of pressure off him. Like I said, when referencing Lindsey Scott, this Scott, or excuse me, De'Aaron King played a lot. That's a lot of hits Ta'amu doesn't have to take. That's a lot of RPOs that he doesn't have to run. Like it keeps him fresh. It keeps him, guessing to where if he does take off. They got bullied on that offensive line by the St. Louis Battlehawks defense, and that's a great defense. And I think it's much better than they were in 2023. But Ta'amu, regardless, is constantly under duress. He's forcing the ball. There's miscommunications with the receivers. Tight end, they're relying more on Alex Ellis and Caden Smith, who, in my opinion, kind of is a step below Briley Moore, who really exploded in 2020 or towards the beginning of the season as another option. But for the DC Defenders, they're 2-3 going into week 6. It doesn't look good for them. It's not. It doesn't look like it's going to get any better. San Antonio's obviously taking a step. They got to play the Battlehawks again at home. I don't see this getting better for the Defenders, which I don't think they warranted, but I wouldn't be surprised if they make a QB change if they drop down to like 2-5. It's not fair to Ta'amu, but unfortunately, life is not fair, and Ta'amu's been victim of that for a little bit. This is a guy who, in my opinion, was really fighting for NFL opportunities, and right now doesn't seem like, based off his sample size in 2024, that this is going to happen for him. My number 7 QB, despite the win, Quinton Dormandy, 19 of 30, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 164 passing yards, 2 rushing attempts for 5 rushing yards. Sometimes you just got to be good enough, and that's what Dormandy did. I do think one of his interceptions wasn't his fault. It was a little bit of a miscommunication, but, this is a guy third week in the offense, starting in the offense, still continuing to learn under AJ Smith. Get these bad games out while you can, pretty much. I know that might be a little bit of a cop out, but I still think that St. Louis owns the XFL conference now. Um, if they beat San Antonio with Chase Garbers, I think they'll beat San Antonio with Quinn Dormady at quarterback, the Battlehawks, that is. I continue to go back and forth on it. Dormady is a guy who I think is taking another step. He's coming up on his 2,000 career passing yards and whatnot. They got a dynamic receiving core with Marquez Stevenson and John Trey Kirkland, Anthony McFarland, John Lovett, and Morgan Ellison. Good three-headed rushing attack. Offensive line, some injuries. PFF has, Sam Treckenberg looking really, really good as far as like his grades and whatnot since he's replaced Alex Millette. I don't know if they have a shot at being St. Louis. Like I said earlier, I think St. Louis matches up way better. But in the end, Dormady continues to provide competent quarterback play. And, I mean, in this league, that's really what you need. But it's kind of looking like both conferences are splitting in a sense, with obviously the Battlehawks in the XFL and in the USFL conference. It's Birmingham, but good showing. Love seeing Dormady play, especially all the nonsense that happened to them last year. Coming in at number 6, Troy Williams. He's actually going to be the backup this week, so we probably won't see him on the list. 19 of 37, 248, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, 2 rushing attempts, 24 yards, leading the team in rushing. I think that's happened like 4 out of 5 games for the Showboats where the quarterbacks have been the leading rusher, maybe 3 out of 5. But Williams, we know who he is at this point. He's gonna be around that 50 to 55%. Made some nice plays. David Davis continues to progress. I had him on my all USFL midseason team over Deion Kane because he's been a little bit more consistent. But I kind of put Williams in that Jalen McClendon category. Granted, had way more reps in college at Utah and whatnot, but the guy needs more reps. I don't know if the NFL is back in his scope of work, for lack of a better term, but I do think that the fact that he's able to play in these spring leagues, continue to progress, and provide competent quarterback play means a lot to not only him, but also the league in general. And I think for that makes it entertaining to watch. But Williams gonna be my number 6 guy. Really like what he's doing. Unfortunately, we'll see Case Cookus back, which Cookus has been banged up. That offensive line, I don't care who you put back there, it's going to continue to be a problem for whoever's playing. Coming in at number 5, I got Danny Etling. Obviously, EJ Perry out, Etling in. Etling managed the game effectively, 14 of 21, 175, no touchdowns, no picks, 5 rushing attempts, 10 rushing yards, and a touchdown. I think Etling, going into week 6, taking advantage of the opportunities he's given. This is a guy that's already on the NFL radar. And with his athletic ability, he doesn't really need to do much to get back into the show. Maybe not, during training camp. But during, once this injury comes, you get maybe some of these younger quarterbacks that don't perform up to snuff. Etling, I think, gets back and gets another shot. Really, really glad that he's also playing as well. Some of these guys, you just wonder what would they look like in full-time reps. Etling is one of them. Sometimes he goes to like the Jack Cohn metric of like, you're like, okay, yeah, this guy's not it, versus Etling, who's able to perform, play pretty well, all that goofy stuff. But really excited to see what he's got going on. It's only going to get better for a guy like Etling. The more he's out there, the more reps he gets. And from there, he'll be able to, hopefully do something and continue to take advantage of the opportunities. Michigan's been a surprise team. They're probably going to sneak their way into a playoff spot. They play Arlington, which could be a good opportunity for him to continue to pad those stats. He's moving the offense with his legs. Wes Hills is starting to get a little bit more comfortable. Matt Colburn, good two-headed rushing attack. And Marcus Sims, this is a guy that I think goes back into the NFL. He was with the Jaguars in 2021. And we'll see what happens. But, Michigan's in a decent spot. They could easily, kind of pump their way into a playoff spot. They played Birmingham tough. Granted, I think Matt Corral was starting that game, or they're still doing the 2 QB system. But Edling's a guy who's taking advantage of the opportunity, and that's something you love to see in this league. Another guy taking advantage of the opportunity is Reed Sinnett. I was big on Sinnett. I think he's a quality QB3, could possibly push into that QB2 spot. Spent some time with the Bengals last year, actually on their practice squad. Sinnett went 27 of 38, 2 of 3, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 3 rushing attempts, 6 rushing yards. I don't blame any of these Houston quarterbacks for the last couple of weeks of play. I am, the guy looks like he's making the reads. He understands the offense. He understands football. I think he's one of the smartest quarterbacks in this league. If you watch some of his social media, he does a great job of, breaking down film and talking and just like understanding it to such a rudimentary level to where he's able to, explain it to people who aren't, 100% confident in their skills and whatnot. I've talked to people in Houston, a lot of guys like this dude, except the coaching staff apparently. But Houston's got so many issues to figure out that, their quarterbacks, like you just have a special teams blunder every week. They lost Ray Wachensky last year or going into this year, and you can see that their special teams unit is totally inept without him. Going my number 3 quarterback, I had to put Luis Perez. I mean, the guy's been putting up better numbers each week. He goes 26 of 36, 270 yards, 1 touchdown, no rushing attempts. I think Perez needs to benefit from Lindsey Scott, personally. I think you need Scott in there to kind of help him out. Take some, open up the rushing attack, give him a series here and there. Perez is coming up on 7,000 passing yards. He's going to have 40 touchdowns probably next week in his career. My only fear with Perez, just from like a long term, is like how many people want to have him as their QB1 pushing forward, if that makes sense. Do you want a guy like Luis Perez continuing to lead your franchise? Do you want him around? Do you want him to continue to be your guy? Obviously, he's limited with the arm strength and whatnot. Mobility looks a little bit stiff as he continues to get older. But is Perez your guy moving forward? And I think that's something coaches need to talk about legitimately. And it's unfortunate. Is he going to be a trade piece that gets moved around here or there? I don't know. I don't have those answers. But I do know that since the AAF, he's been one of the most consistent quarterbacks, despite having to kind of always fight for his spot, and generally just one of the good guys of the league. Coming at number 2, it's Adrian Martinez, 11 for 20, 155, 1 touchdown, no picks, 9 rushing attempts for 138. God willing, they just let this guy finish out the whole season. He's their most effective quarterback. I was a little bit critical of the QB position for Arlington for a little bit. Birmingham for a little bit. I thought that they were going back and forth. I thought they should have had Jamar Smith as their QB1 and just kind of manage the game as this guy, because there just seemed to be too much erratic play between both of them. But with Martinez now actually, getting full game reps, getting QB1 reps in practice, we're seeing a little bit of maturity. We're seeing a little bit of like understanding the game, not trying to do too much and then waiting for the big play to open. They have such a dynamic set of receivers, with Deion Kane, Amari Rogers, Jay Sternberger, a tight end, Ricky Person, the Vulture, 5 rushing touchdowns, the athletic ability of Martinez. It really doesn't take much for this Birmingham team to win. That defense is elite. That defensive line, it seems like every week it's one of these guys, another guy becoming, a 2-sack performance. Obviously some injuries. You had a retirement with Chris Orr earlier in the season. Scooby Wright is now probably out for the rest of the year. He's allegedly retired, but you have Skip Holt saying that that's a little bit premature. DeMarcus Gates coming back, becoming a force. Tizino being a force in there. Secondary, pick your poison. You got like even backups like Dan Isom, making game stealing interceptions. Martinez is the benefactor of that. Birmingham continues to be this dominating force at 5-0, and we'll see what happens in the future. But right now, like, it's Birmingham or bust for me. Number one, based off the consistency, Adrian McCarron, 14 of 24, 2 touchdowns, 214, 2 rushing attempts, 1 rushing yard. We've talked about his mobility, how much more athletic AJ looks right now. We talk about how this is just another year in the offense of him understanding what's going on and, the progression and everything like that. And honestly, extremely happy to see this guy leading this franchise. It's only going to get better. You bring back a guy like Stevie Mitchell, you don't really miss much, for lack of a better term. It's extremely fluid as far as like them just continuing to come in and plugging and playing. Ja'Cour Pearson comes in. The receiving core just makes life so much easier. Jacob Saylor is not only a great running back, but also effective in the passing game as well. And we continue to see in St. Louis, even their offensive line still allowing McCarron plenty of time. This week, you're going to have, Eric Madwood started, Donovan West started, Abdul Beecham. He's starting at right guard with Vidal Alexander out. Going to be a good test for St. Louis. They are playing Houston, so they kind of have that privilege of kind of just air quote figuring it out. But overall, just extremely excited of what we've seen from McCarron and that St. Louis offense. And the guys, been in the league since 2014, plenty of reps in the NFL. Coming up on 4,000 passing yards for his career in spring football. Really excited. He's at 3,200 now. Probably cross 4,000. He might even hit 50 career touchdowns if he hits 26 this year, leading the league in touchdowns. Not too far behind Perez in passing yards, but it doesn't get much better than McCarron and this high-flying greatest show on turf right now. Really pumped about that. But those are my quarterback rankings. We'll continue to push into the actual, what's the word I'm looking for? We'll push into the actual game predictions. But do me a favor in the comments, whatever you want to write, let me know who you guys got as far as like, are my rankings too high, too low, whatever it means to y'all. Going into my predictions right now. Currently, I am 11-7. I am 11-7 right now, and I feel pretty good about that. I feel that I've kind of been a little bit lucky with how some of this stuff has worked out and whatnot. I've put way too much stock into Arlington. I've put way too, some extra stock into some DC and Michigan, but I'm 11-7. The conferences are obviously tied right now, but moving forward, week 6 coming, the midway point of the season. Starting it off with Birmingham and Memphis. I go Birmingham on this. There's just way too many issues on the Memphis offensive line to give Case Cookus or Troy Williams or Josh Love, whoever's the quarterback behind there, start a good feel, for lack of a better term. You got Birmingham. I think this is going to be a defensive onslaught for them. I think they had 6 or 7 sacks in the last time they played. Really, really just mashing these guys around. So we'll see what happens on that front. I don't see Memphis being able to compete. It's really going to come down to that offensive line versus defensive line for Birmingham. In the end, I predict Birmingham to win. I think we're going to see another 35-point to like 35-17 with maybe a cheap touchdown in the end. Coming into the second game of the weekend on Saturday, it's going to be Houston Roughnecks or St. Louis. I got the Battlehawks on this one. Going to give the XFL conference the win on this one. St. Louis is starting to click on all cylinders. You got Darius Shepard coming back. Houston, despite my praise for Reed Sinnett, I don't think they have the offensive firepower to match up well with St. Louis. I don't think their defensive backs are going to be able to cover, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on the linebackers and whatnot. Um, Look for a lot of quick game, especially going four wide and whatnot with a quick, play action to where Pearson in the slot or Shepard in the slot and whatnot. It just, man, we know who Houston is at this point. They're the bottom feeder of the league. St. Louis playing at home. There's just too many variables, in my opinion, for Houston that they cannot match up well enough with St. Louis. So I got St. Louis going for this one. Man, my next game, my Sunday game, my Sunday slate, I want to pick Arlington, but they've just burned me so many times, and I think Michigan's going to take this one. I think Etling's going to, meticulously push the ball down the field. I think, Sims is going to have another, 40-yard plus game. He barely missed another 40-plus yard touchdown last week. I mean, it's just Arlington does not match up with Michigan. I think they'll give them some trouble because of like Jalen Redmond on the defensive line, Vic Beasley and whatnot. But I think the athleticism of Etling will buy him enough time to where, Michigan's able to kind of push this ball down the field. And, they got the double dose of Matt Colburn and Wes Hills. I don't see Arlington being able to compete. And, in my opinion, I hate to say this, there's just been one – Arlington's not getting lucky. You need a little bit of luck in these games. You need the ball to bounce your way every once in a while, and that's just not happening for Arlington. And I hate saying it like that because this is obviously an 0-5 team that last year they went 4-6 and ran the table in the playoffs. It's just extremely unfortunate. But Michigan, I think, wins this game. I think they put up like 20-something points, but we'll see what happens. Our final game of this docket, San Antonio versus DC. I'm going San Antonio. I mean, it just to me, DC's got too many issues, like we talked about with Teamu and whatnot, to where I do not see them effectively being able to, keep up with an AJ Smith type offense. It's extremely sad, but on the flip side, it's the reality of what's going on right now for that team. I really would like to see more of a fight. If they do make a QB change from Teamu, which I don't think they should, I believe it should be McClendon going into week 7, maybe finishing up this game, but it doesn't seem like that's the reality right now. Pushing forward, hopefully we're able to, see kind of a competitive game from, and I know that's a very vague saying, a competitive game from DC, but I just think, another week of Dormandy, the dynamic receiving core, the weapons on, the defensive side with Beckett and Mosley and whatnot, and just a Wade Phillips coach defense, they're going to have a lot of trouble. We're going to see a lot of cover zero from Greg Williams. He'll bring the pressure and whatnot, and Smith is going to eat that up. You're going to have, Kirkland running into the slot, maybe Latimer doing some seams and whatnot. And that's going to be kind of the bugaboo. They're not going to be able to keep up. And, when you do this cover zero, that means that it's man up and they're pretty much bringing the house. I don't see that Williams will adjust that. It's kind of this no risk it for the biscuit type thing. And San Antonio walks away with this one. I could see DC putting up like 2 scores, maybe getting up to 17 points versus the more consistent, high-flying offense of San Antonio. So those are my picks this week. I feel pretty confident. I think Arlington's kind of my only bugaboo as far as like that could upset. Let me know in the comments who you guys are thinking and whatnot, what you think as far as who's going to be, number one quarterback, who's going to win? Is Birmingham, too good or too bad? Or are they going to be due for an upset? I mean, the only game I really see Birmingham having trouble with is St. Louis right now. Maybe a Week 10 matchup, depending on how locked away. Like, do we see a Jamar Smith legacy game? Like, Birmingham plays Michigan. If they're 9-0 going into that, to skip want to play all the starters and whatnot. We'll see what happens. But overall, extremely, extremely satisfied with the quality of football we've been seeing. Really excited to see what happens moving forward. Um, any anything else on that front, guys? Let me know. The standings right now in the conference, you got obviously St. Louis and San Antonio kind of distancing themselves from DC. Birmingham and Michigan up front, also distancing themselves. It's a big game for Michigan. You go 4-2, granted non-conference, but 4-2. Memphis is probably going to lose. Houston's going to lose. They might only need 6 wins to kind of clinch a playoff spot in the USFL division. In the XFL, I think San Antonio and St. Louis kind of keep battling until Week 10, especially because San Antonio plays St. Louis in St. Louis on Week 10. So expect a good fight from all those guys. DC goes into Week 7, Week 8 in Week 7 or Week 8 with a 3-4, 3-5 record. You might see some guys kind of take the gas pedal off and maybe some other dudes play. The problem is like what are you actually developing as far as like guys going forward and whatnot. But those are my picks. Those are my rankings, guys. Let me know in the comments. Appreciate everyone coming through. Really, really, really appreciate you guys always supporting the channel and whatnot. Make sure you like and subscribe. Really helps me out. But until next week, guys, appreciate it. I might be, depending on availability, I might be on some of these showboats, Zoom calls. I'll push them up. I know guys like that. But until then, guys, appreciate y'all, and y'all have a great day.